You may not even realize it, but your self-talk could be ruining your life. I want you to do an experiment the next time you're hanging around people. And I want you to pay close attention to the specific words that they speak. Because it's often easier to hear how other people are talking than it is to recognize the way we talk. And to go a step further, find somebody you know who's always having problems, who's always encountering kind of difficult situations, or is always getting into arguments. And the next time you're with them, listen to how they speak. And what you'll probably find is that people who always have problems are usually people who are always complaining, who are always being negative. Or maybe you know somebody who is always having money problems. Listen to the way that they speak, specifically about money. You might even bring up the topic just to see. And what you will find is that anybody who has a problem with money will speak about it in a negative way. You can see that they come from a place of lack, almost desperation or neediness. These things are very simple. If you have problems with money, it is because you have a bad relationship with money. It is because you think about it in a negative way. You speak about it in a negative way. And of course, then you're going to act negatively towards money. So too, if you always say things like, "Oh, I can never catch a break. Things are always going wrong. You know, I expect there to be problems." If you really begin to pay attention, you'll see these very subtle things that people say. But it makes the whole world of difference. People don't realize that when they come into a situation with expectations, when they expect things to go a certain way, they are in co-creation with that situation. That what they believe to be the fact, they are creating. It is not necessarily that they see what is true, but that they believe certain things into existence through their thoughts, through their words. You see people who have arguments all the time, people who can't get along. It is because both parties have this imaginary image of each other, and then they project that image onto one another, but neither of them is actually operating in reality. It is like getting lost playing mind games with ourselves. So it is never that this person is this way or that way. Perhaps there may be some truth to this, which is why we often believe certain things. But more often than not, we are projecting our own inner reality onto others, onto an external world. And so we create a reality that is often unfavorable to us. And so I say, it's time to stop giving your time and attention and your energy to a reality that you do not want to experience. And this is very difficult. Because when we look out at our lives and we see what we think are the facts, we receive information, we make these conclusions, we make up our minds and say, well, that's just the way things are. That's just the way it is. And I'm telling you right now, that is not the way things are. It is often the way we are. That is why there is that quote, we often do not see reality as it is, we see reality as we are. I like to use the example of the flat earthers And you might say that all these people are insane, they're crazy. But think about it this way. When we walk outside, if I listen to Neil deGrasse Tyson, how we are an oblique spheroid rotating hundreds of miles an hour, blasting through the vastness of space at thousands of miles an hour, to somebody who's not necessarily educated, that sounds like nonsense, even though it is the facts. But when we go outside and look around, what do we see? We see a bunch of flat earth and what seems to be a dome over it. And so that is the reality that we experience. We do not experience the factual reality of rotating thousands of miles through space. We experience a flat earth. That is why people believe in it. Because they are experiencing themselves. They are not experiencing an objective reality. They are experiencing their own inner reality. And no amount of factual evidence is going to change that for them. So too, that is how stubborn we are in normal daily things. That is how stubborn we are when we continuously come at the world from a state of lack. I desperately need to be around people in order for me to feel good. I desperately need this or that. When people go to the store, they can't stop complaining about the prices. These small comments that make a huge difference. That is why it is so important to begin paying attention to the words that you speak to yourself, about the world. Because you may believe your whole life that you are being objective, you are being factual, even rational maybe, never realizing that it was your belief that affirmed whatever reality you think that you see. The moment you take a step back, you stop judging things. You stop having expectations about how things will go. You just sit back and you watch, you observe. You allow whatever information that is being received to be as it is, without criticism, without judgment. And it is only when we stop these things, when we stop projecting our inner reality onto the external reality with our judgments and expectations, do we even begin to see the world clearly. But until that moment, everything is just a mess. In a way, we vomit our inner reality onto the external world, and we say, yes, I know reality. I know how the world is. Well, no, that is just you experiencing yourself. And yes, you believe it, because it is true for you. But we have to realize that there may be one Earth, but there are 8 billion different realities. That is why it is so foolish to say, well, these people should be this way, or you should be doing these things. Because nobody else in this world has absolutely any idea whatsoever what you should be doing. Because in truth, we do not actually know one another. We can only know an image in our minds that we project onto another person. And you know, I've thought about this a lot. This question that, well, will we see our loved ones again after we die? And I have come to the conclusion that the answer is no. But that we will meet our loved ones for the first time. Because in this life, we did not know them. But without the boundaries and the limitation of form, the truth can emerge with absolute clarity. Because our consciousness will not be limited to this dense, heavy, third-dimensional reality. Those who have taken or experimented with psychedelics understand that when you have this increased flood of consciousness, when the floodgates are open, you see reality from a perspective that is transcendent. You see reality so much more clearly than you could ever even think of sober. Now, of course, when you come back to the reality, when you come down, a lot of that information that was received or experienced there gets lost. We can't take certain knowledge or certain wisdom back to this reality. Because when you arrive at a place in which there is no language, which there are no words, how could you possibly bring that kind of information back? The point I'm trying to make is that so long as we exist in this limited form, in this body, that we have to come to the realization, as Socrates said, that we know nothing. Because only in true humility do we even begin to see the world clearly. And that is why pride comes before the fall. It's because you think you know it all, but it is an illusion. Now, of course, practically speaking, we can know things on a general basis. Like, I know how to tie my shoe. I know how to take a shower. I know how to eat a sandwich. Or you may be able to do something more technical. You know how to code on a computer. You know how to play baseball. You know how to fly an airplane. Yes, there are practical things that we have to take into consideration. Life is a paradox. And so if we cannot hold two opposing viewpoints together at the same time, and to be able to see the truth and false in both of them, then we are doomed to be trapped in illusion and never see life clearly. So yes, we address the practicalities of life, that on a surface level, we can know things. On a surface level, we do know each other, we know our friends, we know our family. But on a fundamental level, we have to take a step back and break out of that box, this construct, this imaginary world that we live in. And to do that, we simply stop projecting and we just allow things to be as they are, to allow information to be received without judging it, without labeling it, this is right or this is wrong. I want this or I don't want that. This is what the spiritual masters were talking about when being caught in this cycle of suffering. So long as we are caught in this illusion, we suffer. Because that which is illusion is temporary. And that which is temporary is aligned with death. Because death is the very nature of that which is temporary. And so when we align with the temporary nature of things, we align ourselves with death and all the suffering that comes along with it. But when we realize that we also have an eternal nature, a nature beyond death, because by definition, what is eternal is everlasting, it lives forever. When we align with this part of ourselves, when we take our identity and become harmonious with our true being as consciousness, now we begin to transcend the nature of suffering. And so we cannot be aligned with all the suffering of death if we are harmonious with life. But we can only be harmonious with life when we let go of our attachments to our mind-body identities, to our egos. That is what I am saying when we just allow things to be as they are, to see what information is being received without judgment. Because what you find is that a lot of the suffering that we experience is self-created by the ways we talk to ourselves, by the voice in our head that we choose to believe in, by the story that plays over and over and over again. And we say, yep, that's just the way it is. And so we trap ourselves in this prison, and the cell door was open the whole time. So all you have to do is walk out of this prison of suffering by saying, I do not need to believe in any reality that I do not want to experience. And though that reality may be true for this person or that person, I do not need it to be true for me, because I make the conscious choice to align myself with something greater. Yes, there is much suffering in the world, there is much evil, but you get to make the choice of being part of that reality or being part of a reality in which that may not even exist. And that doesn't mean we have to begin ignoring or being delusional or running away from the nature of things. But you cannot tell what the true nature of things are until you stop projecting, until you stop judging. When you look at the news and you see all these terrible things happening all over the world, and then you turn the news off, where are all those terrible things? Though they may be happening, they are not happening in your experience. So unless something is relevant to your direct experience, then why would you give it your time and attention? But you see, that is what people are doing all the time. They are imagining a future that is completely a fantasy, has no relevance whatsoever to this moment now. Or they ruminate on the past, which again is just this imaginary thing, because we have no accurate representation of what the past actually was. Because from the moment we are born, we are conditioned into this particular body, into this particular mind. So we always see life filtered through this lens, which is why I said, so long as we are in this body, we are in this form, life will always be colored by the filter of our mind. That is why we have to be humble. That is why we have to stop judging and having expectations about the way that we want things to go, and begin trusting in the universe, begin trusting in God. Because would a parent ever allow their child to go through something that wasn't in their best interest? But we have to stop sabotaging our own lives, getting in the way, because when we get in the way, that is when true misery happens. That is when truly terrible things occur. So God might have to say, well, you're doing your own thing, you'll figure it out eventually. And so God often loves us from afar, because we are too caught in our own worlds to see God. We are too aligned with the temporary. So simply be aware of the thoughts that you think and the words that you speak, and see that your judgments and expectations are the source of your suffering.